Hello everyone, welcome. And here we have the winners of the Artificially Correct Hackathon, one of the winner teams who are called Bias by Us. Started. And today we'll be interviewing them to find out how they got on with their journey and get to know a bit more about how this journey went. So, you called your team Bias by Us. Could you give us an insight on what was the inspiration behind the name?
Yeah, I mean, so the basic goal of our challenge was to create this database and to identify cases of bias in machine translation, sort of have a place where people could collect that. And we really liked the idea of it being driven by people, you know, to really have people bring the cases of bias that they find sort of in the wild to the database, rather than us sort of artificially creating our own database in another way. So that's kind of where that idea came from, like bias by us, you know, by the people, if they find that sort of they can bring it in. And then a bit more, the initial idea was also a bit more silly in the sense that it sort of just worked as a logo in my head, and that's not a very good reason to call anything, but you just said the B and the S and then you can squeeze the other letters in between, and that sort of looked nice and it made sense conceptually and visually. So that's sort of what we all happily agreed on in the end. I think that's what we can say about that.
What challenge did your team focus on?
So we were part of challenge 3 because they were numbered, and our challengers outlined a challenge that had sort of 2 possibilities that we could do. So they either wanted a platform to gather information and to sort of explain to the wider community about the issues of bias in machine translation, or they thought it would be nice to create data sets that could be used to study bias in machine translation. And as brilliant as this team was, we thought, oh, we can do both. So we at least tackled the idea of doing both, and we thought it would be nice to try and combine it and not just do one or the other. So yeah, that was the initial challenge, and then we tried to combine the two, that we can on the one hand gather information on bias machine translation, but on the other hand also through that, and by using the website and by using sort of everyone out there, create a huge data set to then study bias machine translation.
That's great. I think you've already started talking about what the solution towards it was, but if you would like to elaborate, if someone would like to elaborate on the solution to combat this challenge.
Yeah, so our whole idea is like to provide all the people who really wants to learn what is really the biases. Because if someone there are people who already know, and there are lots of people who wants to learn, but then there are not particular resource like in particular place where you can learn all the information and got to know. So what we thought is like, okay, let's gather all the resource, let's have one repository where people can learn and can understand, okay, what's this biases. And the second solution of, as Janica told, like it's this like about our data set. So the thing is like, if you feed a garbage value to the machine, it will learn the garbage. And similar to lots of places where there, which is like where bias are there and it's not reported and not being corrected. So what we want is like we create a data set in our database so that it can be used further. So like so it's like kind of a crowdsourcing information, where if you can like if you can spot a bias, just report to us, spot it down. So we'll get to know, okay, there is a bias in that, and then we can add it to our data set and we'll provide a solution. Okay, what's the unbiased thing for that, like how to correct it out. So that's the whole thing. Or even the person who is going to report to that bias can suggest, okay, I think it can be corrected by this sentence, or replace this sentence by this thing. So that's how all this whole thing works.
Is there a specific program that you have for it, a specific platform for this editing and changing of the sentence usage?
Yeah, maybe I can take this question. So we have we came up with a preliminary website to interface people who want to submit data and for people who also want to review, also to read up information. And yeah, right now we have developed, or rather built this website. And eventually what we also want to do is to have a plugin where people could be proactively prompted to add data to this database while they're browsing, and to get people involved in active collection. So this is right now what we have is a website as an interface, and eventually it will be a programmed tool which will act as a plugin.
So is this something that we can expect to see in the market soon?
Well, we definitely hope so. We're currently like planning how best to develop this and how to divide the tasks and everything, but we're definitely all eager to continue working on this project because we really like sort of the idea and solution that we came up with, and we really hope that we can build it up further so that we can actually make it live and useful for the people out there and for all of us.
And as you said, you're evaluating it right now. So what would you say are the major limitations for the solution at this stage?
Yeah, I think one challenge that we will eventually face is about the data itself, as in the starting from data privacy, or rather the collecting data from different websites to get permission from those websites where we are collecting data, to evaluating this data from experts, because this is a very subjective topic and each person has his own opinion about a bias and so on. So although we try to consolidate all the information, so I can imagine it will still be a challenge for us to label this data, for example, curate this data set. This is one technical challenge I see so far. Yeah, anybody else who has something to add, please do.
You know, I think that's indeed the main thing, is that the data that's being collected is, of course, indeed subjective, like you say. And also this is language that's evolving, you know, like especially when you think of non-binary language specifically, for example, there's no consensus for many languages, you know, what kind of pronouns are okay to use for certain non-binary people. Different non-binary people might choose different pronouns and they're all equally valid. So that's kind of this multiple solutions to the same issue that you need to provide for that. So the data set at some point, the database has to accommodate for that to a certain degree, but then you have to figure out how big can we make that. And I think another practical thing that we're working on is getting that plugin actually to work. You know, we have very different backgrounds, very useful skills, but that is something that we haven't quite cracked yet. So we're now reaching out to all of the experts in our network to see, you know, who can help us, you know, get those next steps rolling. But we're all very excited to really get this to work. So I have faith that we will actually get it done, but you know, there's quite a few steps between the ID and where we want to see the ID go in the future.
Moving on to a more global scale, let's say, how far do you think we are still from removing gender bias or racial bias or other sort of biases on a global scale in machine translations? I realize this is a pretty huge question, but what are your thoughts on it?
Well, honestly, I think there is still a long way to go, but I can only speak from my experience, like here in the German-speaking area, there is a lot of effort done at the moment. This is actually quite a controversial topic as well, but I can see that there is a lot of effort, and actually this is one of the main things we're aiming for, is to create awareness, at least, because always, if you want to change something, the first step always is to create awareness of the problem. So I don't know, I think it hugely depends, of course, on what sort of society you're in or whatever. So of course there are different countries, different societies that all have different like stages in this regard, but I still think it's a long way to go. But at least we've made a start.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say exactly, like, I think you can really see nowadays that a lot of effort is being put into sort of working on it. Also, the machine translation tools that are already online, that they're putting in a lot of effort, and there is more and more research in that field. But it is mainly also still research kind of building up on each other and like building up on previous research, and mainly starting with like binary gender, slowly getting into non-binary gender. But it's still harder to like research sort of racial bias or even other biases, because it's not as easy to detect. And even if sort of, even as research in the area sort of increasing, I find it is still going to be quite a difficult topic to really implement it, because even if you agree, okay, something has to be done, there's still no exact regulations as to how best to formulate things. Because in the German language, we have different ways of formulating it, whether we use the star or whether we use a colon. And then, as Joke said, also non-binary terms, there's different pronouns and they're all accepted. So even if we say, okay, research is improving and a lot is changing, how best do we actually do this? And there's not really a consensus yet on how best this can be achieved. So I think that has to be sort of discussed as well before then it can actually be fully implemented.
Do you know of any examples or programs or tactics that are already in place to avoid bias in translation?
Yeah, maybe I can add a few cents to this. For example, the companies, or rather the technology which Grammarly provides, and also, for example, Google, they do try to give solutions for such gender biases through well-developed machine translation code through especially in the domain of natural language generation. But the work is still going on for sure. I think we have some recent articles, especially from Grammarly, which discussed about this issue, where people raised concerns about some of the also machine translation software like DeepL. They also are focusing on this, and of course there are some machine learning algorithms that already tackle this problem. And we hope that of course, everything depends on the data, right? So that's exactly what we're trying to get to, have good data so that we can support such machine translation systems better.
In terms of AI translations, what would you like to see happen in the next few years to come?
Well, coming back to the previous question, actually, there is one project here in Germany that focuses on German to English translation, and they only recently developed some sort of text checking tool where you can check your text for any sort of bias. But it's still very much at the development stage. But I think this is one way to go, certainly, so that maybe you don't have the chance right now to actually produce an unbiased translation, but at least you can check your output and see whether or not it's unbiased, and then make the necessary changes in the post-editing process, for example. So this is certainly one amazing development that could be implemented further in the future. But of course, this still includes a lot of manual corrections. So I don't know what can be done AI-wise in that regard.
I think we also should just move to more like flexible solutions. You know, one of the things is that when sentences sometimes are ambiguous, even, you know, they just can mean different things. And if you don't have enough context, then it's really hard, even as a human, maybe to know what's happening. But in those cases, the systems should be able to flag that ambiguity to the translator that's supposed to work with the output, and be like, okay, this word can mean this and this and this and this, or it can be, you know, instead of deciding like, oh, we'll just go for the masculine generic, it can be like, no, this is a person that has a certain job. This person could be either one of these genders, inclusive also obviously of non-binary genders. and have the translator make the call, you know, or at least to some extent. And I think that's in part with the project that the other winning team of the hackathon, they worked on word to vector. So they sort of flag elements in a sentence that can cause bias, you know, that can be biased, and that can also be a good support to the translators. I think, you know, that they are aware, like, okay, this sentence has a high potentiality to contain bias, so be aware while you translate, you know, how are you going to tackle this? I think that sort of just offering support rather than trying to have AI get it right, just try to have it support the people that work with the text in more creative ways. I think that would be a nice way of going forward, personally.
Now, coming back to the experience of the hackathon, you all participated in it and went on to win it. Yay. But what would you say to someone thinking about participating in the next hackathon?
See, the thing is, like, it's really funny, but again, we all, for all of us, this is our first hackathon. So we really don't know what to expect in a hackathon, how it's gonna work, and especially like we don't we all know don't know each other like since the day of like hackathon. So I would say, like, if someone wants to participate, go ahead. Like, it's really fun experience, and you will get and learn a lot. Like it's a like I met to this all wonderful people, and there are really lots of amazing talks. And honestly, like, before coming to this hackathon, I thought like I know what bias is about and all this thing, but I'm wrong. Like, I just know about like 2% or something. But after that, okay, I can say, okay, I know like at least now 30% and all, like, because still a lot way to learn about it. But then seriously, it's open your eyes, and yeah, it's a good experience. It's a good learning experience.
Well, I can only agree, actually. So initially I was a bit afraid, let's put it this way, because it was the word hack alone already put me off a little, because I'm a linguist, so I don't really know that much about coding. But eventually I signed up, and even when I was first confronted with the challenge, I felt like, oh my God, what are we going to do? What do they expect from us? But I have to say also the organizers, they really made an effort to make everything very clear, and they were very supportive. And I learned so much in these few hours, actually. So it wasn't even 3 full days, and it was, first of all, it was amazing to get to know all these people with the different backgrounds and to learn so many things. I didn't even have any idea that there was such thing as an international Quidditch association. So that was really cool, even on a personal level, and also from a professional level. There are just so many things we learned in such a short time. And personally, for me, it was very helpful to have this experience on having to work under pressure and having to present something at a certain point of time, because I'm the sort of person who usually thinks a lot and evaluates and re-evaluates. And with this hackathon, we just had to come up with a solution very quickly and just do something. And it was really an amazing experience.
So, if you could use one word to describe this hackathon, what would that one word be? And I expect an answer from all of you. No pressure, but could be 1 word, 2 words, but
I would say inspiring for me, because it's, I mean, yeah, I think inspiring works, because it really, you know, it was, I felt very insecure going in because it was my first hackathon as well. And I was like, you know, I know about translation and machine translation, but I don't really know that much about bias. I want to learn, but I don't know how useful my skill set is going to be in a hackathon. And just by, you know, sometimes I had an idea and then someone else picks up on it and they could actually do something with it. And then just, you know, bringing together all these different people with different experiences really got the ball rolling. And so that, and all of the work that we've done now is actually inspiring me to write my next project proposal more in the direction of gender bias in machine translation as well. So I'm sort of continuing there. And then all of the experts that came to talk and all of the people that we got to meet throughout the process were also very inspiring. So I think inspiring would be kind of my keyword if I had to pick one. Yeah.
Yeah, I would go with motivating, in the sense that it really motivates you because it shows you that there's so many other people interested in that topic as well, and so many other people, and we're all at different stages as well. Some of us are still students, some of us already have a PhD or working full time, you know, we're all at different stages, and you can really see some know more about this topic, some less, but we all kind of want the same thing, and we all really sort of want to work together to create something together. And it's also motivating. So as a team, it's really motivating. And also, yeah, as Bettina said, we learn so much in so little time. It's motivating how much more we can learn and how much more we can maybe get done. So I would go with motivating.
Yeah, I think I'll go next. And for me, the keyword would be eye-opening, because since a few years I was planning to participate in a hackathon, but I never did, also because of the insecurity, like just you mentioned, what to expect, and yeah, surprising. But then when I actually got here, I saw how the synergy between different disciplines came through, and it was not all about coding, but it was all about the information compiling, everything coming together. It was brilliant, I think. Yeah, it just was so amazing that I could stay up all night. So it was energetic as well. Yeah, so eye-opening experience for me.
For me, I would say it was like powerful, because all the people from all different backgrounds, not just our team, but like all, like there are like almost people from all over the parts of the world, different part of the world. They come together and they present like such a good solution to like all the single problem that you feel like really powerful, and it's like beyond capability of like human brains work, like how beautifully. So yeah, it's a powerful for me.
Okay, so for me, I would go for stimulating, because it just received so many new ideas from all of you and also from the other teams, and it really just encouraged me to look deeper into this field. Yeah, I just thought it was very thought-provoking and stimulating for me.
Thank you so much, everyone, for this wonderful answers, first of all, but also the amazing insights that you provided. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your amazing answers, and good luck and all the best with your ideas, solutions, and more steps towards removing bias from machine translations and in general. Thank you.